At my celebration party, my husband and SIL's cruel stunt left me questioning everything. I had no idea that the night I planned to celebrate the happiest moment of my life would turn into one of the worst. My husband, James, and I had been married for 5 years. We'd been through our ups and downs, but I thought we were solid. His sister, Lily, had always been a bit of a troublemaker, outspoken, nosy, and constantly inserting herself into everyone's business. But I never imagined she'd cross this kind of line. I had planned a small party to announce my pregnancy. Nothing extravagant, just a casual evening with friends and family. I'd picked out decorations, prepared snacks, and even bought a little onesie to surprise James. I was so excited. The night started great. Everyone was smiling, chatting, and enjoying themselves. When the moment came, I stood up, holding the onesie, and said, "James, you're going to be a dad." The room erupted into cheers. James looked surprised, almost too surprised, but he hugged me and said all the right things. For a moment, everything felt perfect, until Lily opened her mouth. She stood up, raising her glass. "Congrats, you two," she said, her tone dripping with something I couldn't quite place. "But I think James has something he needs to share." I looked at James confused. He shifted uncomfortably, but didn't say anything. "James," I prompted, my voice low. He finally stood, clearing his throat. "Grace, there's something we need to talk about." The room fell silent. Everyone was staring at us now. My heart started pounding. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. James exchanged a glance with Lily before continuing. "We found out some things about you." "What are you talking about?" I asked, my stomach sinking. Lily stepped forward, holding up her phone. "You've been cheating on James," she said. The words hit me like a slap. "What?" She shoved the phone in my face, showing me a blurry photo of a woman who looked vaguely like me sitting in a car with a man. "That's not me," I said immediately. "Don't lie," James said, his voice sharp. "We've been looking into this for weeks. Lily even followed you one day." My legs felt weak. "You followed me?" "Of course I did," Lily said smugly. "You think I'd let you get away with this?" I turned to James, my eyes brimming with tears. "You believe this? After everything?" "I don't know what to believe anymore," he said coldly. I tried to defend myself, but it was like talking to a wall. James and Lily kept throwing accusations at me, pointing to evidence that didn't even make sense. My friends and family looked on in stunned silence, unsure whether to step in or stay out of it. I couldn't believe this was happening. This was supposed to be a celebration of our growing family, and instead, it was turning into a nightmare. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Lily burst out laughing. "Oh my God, your face," she said, doubling over with laughter. James cracked a smile too, his expression softening. "It's a joke, Grace," he said, as if that made it better. "Just a prank." The room went quiet. Everyone was looking at me, waiting for my reaction. "A joke," I repeated, my voice shaking. "Yeah," Lily said, still laughing. "We just wanted to mess with you a little. Lighten up." I stared at them, unable to process what I was hearing. "You think this is funny?" I said, my voice rising. "You just humiliated me in front of everyone, accused me of cheating, and this is a joke to you?" "Come on, Grace," James said. "It wasn't that serious. Don't make a big deal out of it." But it was a big deal. I turned to the guests, all of whom were looking anywhere but at me. I felt my face burning with shame, my hands trembling with rage. Without another word, I turned and walked out of the house, slamming the door behind me. I didn't stop walking until I reached the end of the block. My mind was racing and my chest felt tight. I couldn't believe what had just happened. They called it a joke, but it didn't feel funny. It felt cruel, humiliating. I pulled out my phone and saw messages from James already piling up. "James, Grace, come back. You're overreacting." "James, it was just a prank." I didn't mean to upset you. James, please talk to me. Overreacting? Was he serious? I ignored the text and kept walking. My feet carried me to a small park nearby, where I found an empty bench and sat down. The night was cold, but I didn't care. I needed to be alone. The memories of the night replayed in my head like a bad movie. The way James and Lily had smirked at me, the look on everyone's faces, the gut-wrenching feeling of being accused of something I didn't do. I thought about James's reaction. He hadn't defended me. He hadn't even questioned the fake evidence. He had just gone along with Lily, like he trusted her more than me. How could he do that? We were supposed to be partners. This was supposed to be one of the happiest moments of our lives. And instead, he turned it into a public spectacle. Eventually, I got up and walked back to the house. Not because I wanted to, but because I didn't know where else to go. When I opened the door, the party was over. The decorations were still up, but the house was eerily quiet. James was sitting on the couch, his head in his hands. He looked up when he heard me come in. "Grace," he said softly. I didn't answer. I just walked past him and headed for the bedroom. He followed me, standing in the doorway as I started changing out of my party clothes. "Can we talk?" he asked. I didn't look at him. "What is there to talk about, James? You made it pretty clear where we stand." "It wasn't like that," he said quickly. "I didn't mean to hurt you." I turned to face him, my anger finally boiling over. "Do you have any idea how humiliating that was?" I said, my voice shaking. "You accused me of cheating in front of everyone I know, and then you laughed about it. You didn't even defend me, James. You just stood there and let Lily take the lead." He looked down, unable to meet my eyes. "I thought it would be funny. I didn't think you'd take it so seriously." "Seriously?" I repeated, my voice rising. "Of course I took it seriously. You questioned my integrity, my loyalty, and my character, all for a joke." He didn't have an answer. "Do you even understand what you've done?" I continued. "You've made me look like a fool, James. You've made everyone think there's even a shred of truth to what Lily said. No one believes it," he said weakly. "How do you know that?" I shot back. Because from where I was standing, it didn't look like anyone was rushing to defend me. The silence stretched between us. "Lily pushed for it," he said finally. "She thought it would be funny to see your reaction, and you just went along with it." I asked, Why didn't you stop her?" "I don't know," he admitted. "She said it would be harmless." "Harmless?" I said, laughing bitterly. "Do you think I'm ever going to forget this, James? Do you think our friends and family are going to forget it?" He reached out to touch my arm, but I pulled away. "I need some time," I said coldly. "Don't talk to me right now." I spent the night in the guest room, staring at the ceiling. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lily's smirk and James's blank expression as he stood there, letting it all happen. The next morning, I woke up to find him sitting at the kitchen table with his phone in hand. He looked like he hadn't slept either. "I called Lily," he said as soon as he saw me. "I told her she needs to apologize." I didn't answer. I poured myself a cup of coffee and leaned against the counter. "She said she didn't mean for it to go that far," he continued. "Do you really believe that?" I asked. He hesitated. "I don't know, but I told her she crossed a line. That wasn't enough for me." "I'm glad you finally told her that," I said. "But it doesn't change the fact that you let it happen in the first place. You should have shut it down before it even started." "I know," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "And you should have defended me," I added. "Instead, you made me feel like I was alone, like I couldn't even trust my own husband." His face crumpled, and for a moment I thought he might cry. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't realize how much I was hurting you." "That's the problem, James," I said. "You didn't think about me at all." I left the house that day, needing space to clear my head. I didn't know what my next step was, but I knew one thing. Things couldn't go back to the way they were. Something had broken between. Something had broken between us. I could feel it as clearly as if a glass had shattered. James's apology wasn't enough, not after what he'd done, or more accurately, what he'd allowed T. I spent the day driving aimlessly, trying to make sense of everything. My marriage, my relationship with James, even my friendship with the people who had just stood there the night before, saying nothing. It all felt wrong. Eventually, I ended up at my best friend Megan's house. She'd been at the party, but left early after Lily's prank. "I was hoping you'd come by," Megan said when she opened the door. "You looked like you were about to explode last." She made me tea, and we sat in her living room while I told her everything. How I felt betrayed by James, humiliated by Lily, and like I couldn't trust anyone anymore. "I can't believe he went along with it," Megan said, shaking her head. "That's not a prank, Grace. That's just cruel." "Exactly," I said, relieved that someone finally understood. "And the worst part is, he doesn't even seem to realize how bad it was." Megan sighed. "James has always let Lily get away with too much. She's been pushing boundaries since the day you met her." I nodded, remembering all the little things that had bothered me over the years. Lily showing up unannounced, making backhanded comments about my cooking or my job, and always needing to be the center of attention. "I've put up with her for so long," I said. "But this feels like a line I can't ignore." "You shouldn't ignore it," Megan said firmly. "You need to set boundaries with both of them. And if James can't stand up for you, then maybe it's time to ask yourself some hard questions." I knew she was right, but the thought of facing James and Lily again made my stomach churn. When I got home later that evening, James was still sitting at the kitchen table. He looked up as I walked in, his face full of worry. "Where were you?" he asked. "I needed space," I said, dropping my bag on the counter. "Grace, I'm sorry," he said again. "I messed up. I should have stopped Lily. I should have defended you." I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms. "You keep saying you're sorry, but I need more than that, James. I need to understand why you let this happen in the first place." He hesitated, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know," he admitted. "Lily's always been persuasive. She made it sound like it would be funny, like it was no big deal." "It was a big deal," I said sharply. "And the fact that you didn't see that scares me, James. How can I trust you after this?" His face fell. "I want to earn your trust back," he said. "Just tell me what I need to do." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. "You need to take responsibility," I said. "Not just with me, but with everyone who was at that party. You humiliated me in front of our friends and family, and you need to fix it." He nodded. "Okay, I'll do it. And Lily," I added, "she can't keep treating me like this. If you can't stand up to her, then this marriage isn't going to work." He hesitated again, and for a moment, I thought he might argue. But then he said, "You're right. I'll talk to her." A few days later, James called everyone who had been at the party and told them the truth. He admitted that the evidence Lily had shown was fake, that the whole thing had been a cruel prank, and that he was deeply sorry for going along with it. Some people were understanding, while others were clearly uncomfortable. But at least the truth was out. Lily, on the other hand, was a different story. When James confronted her, she laughed it off like it was no big deal. "Oh, come on," she said. "It wasn't that serious. Grace needs to lighten up." "She doesn't need to lighten up," James shot back. "You cross a line, Lily, and if you can't respect her, then you're not welcome in our lives." I couldn't believe it when he told me what he'd said. For the first time, it felt like he was finally putting me first. But even with James making an effort, the damage was done. I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal, the memory of him standing there while Lily tore me apart. It wasn't something an apology could fix overnight. I started going to therapy, hoping to sort through my feelings. My therapist helped me see that while James was trying to make amends, it was okay for me to take my time deciding what I wanted. And what I wanted, more than anything, was to feel safe and valued in my own marriage. Over the next few weeks, James tried everything to fix what had happened. He became more attentive, asking me how I was feeling, checking in constantly, and making an effort to help around the house without being asked. He even started going to therapy himself, saying he wanted to work on understanding why he had let Lily influence him for so long. I appreciated the effort, but part of me couldn't shake the lingering doubt. The memory of him standing silently while Lily tore me down at the party kept replaying in my head. It wasn't just a prank that hurt. It was a realization that in that moment I couldn't rely on him. Lily, of course, was a different story. She didn't apologize. Not once. Every time James tried to bring it up, she dismissed it as if it were nothing. She's overreacting, she told him during one phone call, loud enough for me to overhear. If she can't take a joke, that's not my problem. Hearing those words made my blood boil. But instead of confronting her directly, I told James, if she doesn't respect me, I don't want her in my life. And if you keep letting her treat me this way, I don't want you in my life either. He nodded, his expression serious. I'll handle it. A week later, James and I sat down to talk. I told Lily she's not welcome here until she apologizes, he said. Did she apologize? I asked, already knowing the answer. No, he admitted. She said I was being ridiculous. I wasn't surprised. Lily had always been like that. Unable to admit when she was wrong, unwilling to take responsibility for her actions. And you're okay with that? I asked. I'm not, he said quickly. But I'm not going to force her to apologize if she doesn't mean it. I can only control how I react, and I'm choosing you, Grace. I'm choosing us. It was the right thing to say, but it didn't feel like enough. I started thinking about what Megan had told me. You need to set boundaries, not just with Lily, but with James too. And she was right. It wasn't just about Lily anymore. It was about me learning to stand up for myself, to demand the respect I deserved. I decided to take some time for myself. I told James the first needed a few days alone to figure things out. And to my surprise, he didn't argue. Take all the time you need, he said. During those days, I reflected on everything. The prank was just the final straw in a long line of moments where I'd let others, Lily, James, even our friends, undermine me. But I realized I wasn't the same person I was when I first married James. I was stronger now. I had a voice, and it was time I used it. When I came home, I sat James down. I've made my decision, I said. He nodded, waiting. I'm staying, I said. But things have to change. Relief washed over his face, but I held up my hand to stop him. First, Lily is out of our lives until she shows real accountability. No phone calls, no visits, nothing. Done, he said immediately. Second, we're going to therapy together. I need to trust you again, and that's not going to happen overnight. Whatever it takes, he said. And third, I continued, if anything like this ever happens again, I'm gone. No warnings, no second chances. Do you understand? I understand, he said, his voice steady. It's been 6 months since that conversation, and things are better. James has stuck to his promises. We're both in therapy, and it's helping us communicate in a way we never have before. Lily, predictably, hasn't apologized, but I've stopped caring. She doesn't get to control my life anymore. I'm still working on forgiving James, but I've also realized that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means holding people accountable while allowing yourself to heal. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm in control of my life again. This isn't the story I imagined when I married James, but it's my story now. And I'm determined to make it a good one.